Welcome to the Wise Take DFS podcast. I am your host, CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am bringing you a solo MLB DFS podcast. It's the last baseball podcast of the week. We've got the NFL preseason podcast for Friday's slate coming up next, so I'm going to go through this. We got 14 games. Try to go through it as quickly as we can. This is obviously a first look. If you're looking for that good, you're going to want to come and check us out at wisetake.com. Check out some of our premium content. We got articles, cheat sheets, where there will be a strategy session tomorrow where we break down the slate with statistics more in depth. It'll be a live stream with a chat. For subscribers only, we got monthly plans. We got day passes for MLB only. But once you get it, you're going to want to, what you really want though is get access to this Slack chat we got going down. We are not just a site that provides content, we are a site that is a full-blown DFS community. So I do recommend, if you haven't already checked this out, go see what it's all about, wisetake.com. Talk to some of our members and see what it really is. Find out why everybody loves being a part of the Wise Take Nation. Football is here. Baseball, we are winding down. We're still going to grind it out the rest of the season. That's what we do. But football is a creeping, and NBA is right around the corner, so we're super excited here at the Wise Take Nation. Super excited to break things down. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got Dan Straley of the Miami Marlins visiting Mad Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals. Look like we have a total around 7.5. The Washington Nationals, as expected, with Scherzer on the mound, a massive favorite. Scherzer only 12-6. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that's a good place to start. In cash games, I think that there's really nothing to think about. You're not going to want to miss out on this guy. I know the Marlins have been kind of pesky to some of these other weaker Braves pitchers like Gausman and Anibal Sanchez, but that Mad Max is the best pitcher in baseball. So, or one of the, anyway, top three, right? Maybe even top two realistically, him and Sale, I guess. But nonetheless, he's 12-6 on DraftKings against the Marlins. Phenomenal matchup. I think he's a go. Price really isn't all that bad. We've been seeing him in the 13s. And we've been seeing a trend of these high-owned pitchers going relatively low-owned. So, again, I think it's definitely in play. As far as the Nationals, a lot of lefties here. They did travel from St. Louis. So, typically we do see guys get off to a slow start. But they're home. They've been playing well at home. That whole Baltimore and Washington, D.C. area, when it's warm and humid like this, the ball does fly out. And it looks like we have one of those situations now. So, Straley giving up a lot of fly balls, especially the lefties. I do think we can look at the Nationals, and they're reasonably priced. I think they're all pretty cheap except for Bryce Harper, who's been red hot. But I like them all. I mean, the lefties are your primary targets here, but I wouldn't ignore Zimmerman, Rendon, or Turner at all in this matchup. So, I think the Nationals are definitely an interesting offense, and I think Max Scherzer with them, if you can make it work, wouldn't be a bad move against Straley. Next, we got Marcus Stroman of the Toronto Blue Jays visiting Lance Lynn of the New York Yankees. Total in this game looks like should be somewhere around 9 or so, or 8.5. I should probably say, probably more like 8.5. Looks like there could be some light rain in the forecast, 30% precipitation, humidity about 81%. So if this game does play, which it should if it's only light rain, the bats seem like they're in a pretty good spot. I do think that Stroman at 5.7 is cheap, but I know these Yankees can hit sinkers well. And whenever Stroman faces a team that can hit sinkers, he typically doesn't do all that well. So I do think the Yankees are in a pretty good spot here at home. Aaron Hicks has certainly cooled off a little bit, but Giancarlo Stanton has not. He's been getting it done. He's been, I think he hit a home run earlier today. And he's been getting hits in every game. A lot of doubles, but still seems red hot. 5.3, I still think it's worth it. Andujar's price all the way up to 5K, but I mean, that dude's been on fire. He's been playing phenomenally. So, I think the Yankees are a viable stack. Again, they're cheap outside of Stanton and Andujar. You got some good prices on these guys that have a lot of upside against Stroman. Obviously, after Stroman, you have a bad Toronto bullpen. So if they can't get to Stroman, there could be some upside. As far as Lance Lynn and the Blue Jays have kind of stepped it up to their competition. We're still waiting to see what they do against the Royals. They didn't have the greatest series against the Royals. I mean, they did win a couple times, but just in general, like when they were playing the Red Sox, they were really putting up runs. They had some kind of team meeting and decided that they were tired of being everybody's floor mats in the East. So we'll see. Maybe they step it up. It's a good ballpark for him. I'd probably, against Lance Lynn, you definitely want the lefties. So I'm looking at like Curtis Granderson, who used to be a Yankee and had a lot of success in this ballpark. Smoker Morales, unfortunately, got to pick one. The rest of these guys are all pretty right-handed. And Lance Lynn's look pretty good. So I think we can take a couple of these Blue Jays, but I think the Yankees is really where my focus is. I think those are the main guys that I'd like to attack against Stroman. I know that Stanton, I'm pretty sure Hicks, and I think Gleyber has, I know Gleyber's been really cold, but I think he's got really good numbers against the sinker. Another guy, if you want to be a little contrarian with your stack, is Neil Walker. He has been heating up. He's been pretty hot, playing a lot better. He's got a lot of progression to catch up with. Positive progression, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot in there for him to catch up with. He was really, really bad most of the season, but again, he seems to have turned it around. I think he's a good way to play the Yankees, who are typically a popular team and a contrarian matter. Next up, we got Cole Hamels, the lefty from the Chicago Cubs, visiting Trevor Williams of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Looks like we could have some rain here too. I guess the Northeast is getting attacked with more rain. That's exactly what they needed. We needed. The Northeast. Cole Hamels coming off a weird start against the Royals. He didn't do bad, but he didn't strike anybody out, which is pathetic. And before that, he played these Pirates, and he struck them out like crazy. We did see Lester had a really good game against the Pirates. It's kind of odd because you look at their strikeout rates, and they don't ever look high, but they do strike out against lefties. Like, lefties can get the better of them. And when you look at the season stats, again, it's going to show you that they don't really strike out, but we've seen it time and time again. I played Cole Hamels against these guys last time, and it was a great result. I do think it's kind of a fish play to go back to him. Not that I think he's going to be crazy chalk, but he just did really well against the Pirates. You very rarely see a mediocre-ish pitcher dominate a team like that more than once. We saw Lester a couple days ago, or a couple starts ago, got his teeth kicked in by the Pirates in this exact stadium, and then came out tonight and just balled out on him. So I don't think I want Cole Hamels at 8-7 against the Pirates in this spot. I think that his ownership, again, I don't think it's going to be chalk, but I do think his ownership may be a little inflated more than it should be because he dominated them last time and because Lester just dominated them. So I'm not really on Cole Hamels. Really didn't like what I saw in that Royal start. I do think David Freese is kind of interesting. You can look at some of these Pirates. I'm not crazy about them, but I think you can look at some. As far as the Cubs, Anthony Rizzo has said multiple times he loves playing in this ballpark. Trevor Williams, I don't think is a great pitcher, but he is a guy that's got some pretty low hard contact numbers overall. This is a big park. It is going to be warm and humid if the game plays, but I think that on a 14-game slate, you got to think there's going to be better spots. So I'm not really on this too high on the Cubs. I think Anthony Rizzo was a fine one-off, as he is every day. I don't mind Javi Baez because of all the upside, but in general, really not a lot from this game I like. Next up, Ryan Stanek of the Tampa Bay Rays, visiting Brian Johnson, the lefty from the Boston Red Sox. So, looks like Tommy Pham is supposed to be back, so we do have a couple power righties in there with CJ Cron. I guess it's really Pham and Cron. I like playing the Rays, but I like playing them at home, and I like playing their lefties. So going up against lefty and Brian Johnson, I don't know how interested I'm going to be. Brian Johnson has some decent K upside at times. He kind of shocked everybody against the Yankees. He did give up some runs, but then he had like 11 or 12 Ks, some like ridiculous amount. So, I'm kind of lukewarm on him. 6.8's a reasonable price, but the Rays are a team I don't love to attack with unless it's Masahiro Tanaka, who seems to dominate them. But I guess at 6.8, you got to think he's in play, especially because he is backed by one of the best offenses in the league in the Red Sox. They're home where they play better, small park, so if he can get the win, he's already doing a good chunk to get there. So Brian Johnson, I'll say it maybe. If you're not playing Brian Johnson, I think you can take a look at Cron and Pham. But again, the Rays are a team I typically like to play against righties, and I typically like to play them at home, where their WRC plus is significantly higher. As far as the Red Sox, they're definitely in play. I know they got a little cold there against the Phillies. They were putting up runs, they just weren't doing it in Red Sox fashion, but they got their DH back. Mookie Betts had an off day. Should be ready to roll here. I think that they're fine. I mean, we got to see who's going to be coming in. It might be a Chirinos day, and if it is, that's not good for Chirinos. Chirinos is a guy you can play against bad teams, but he's a guy that does have a tendency to get blown up against good teams. So I think the Red Sox could be very interesting. Although I'll admit I don't typically attack the Rays all that much with bats because they're pretty good at this bullpen game they play. Either way, it's the Red Sox. They're very, very expensive, though. So if you're playing Max Scherzer, it's going to be very hard to play the guys you want from the Boston Red Sox. Next up, Derrick Rodriguez of the San Francisco Giants visiting Anthony DeSclafani of the Cincinnati Reds. The Giants look like they are slight favorites. Total here is about 8.5. Great ballpark for hitting. Decent weather outside the rain. Another situation where we do have some rain. DeSclafani's been pitching kind of out of his mind, coming off a ridiculously good game against the Rays. I mean, I just have a hard time believing it. Don't get me wrong, this guy was supposed to be pretty good at one time. He's had a bunch of injury issues. His advanced metrics still don't look great. I do think we can take the Giants in a rare situation where they're getting a huge ballpark upgrade. They should be throwing a good amount of lefties. We'll see if Crawford's in there, but Brandon Belt is back and he's really cheap. I think the Giants could be one of the sneakier offenses on the slate. If they can get to DeSclafani, they'll then have a bunch of bad bullpen guys coming in from the Reds. But there's definite interest here in the Giants, a team that I don't really play a lot. Nobody ever really does. But this is a situation, like I said, you're getting a good ballpark boost. DeSclafani, on those games where he does well, he typically gets a lot of strikeouts. And the Giants are a team that doesn't really strike out a ton. So you would think if they put the ball in play, good ballpark, decent weather outside of the rain. When I say decent weather, I'm talking about the temperature and the humidity. Very humid, fairly warm. Typically a good spot for bats. I'm not a Derrick Rodriguez believer either. I've been saying for a while now in the Y streams that I think the Reds are eventually going to erupt on somebody, and they've been showing flashes of it. And Derrick Rodriguez is a candidate for this. He's a righty. The Reds should throw out a bunch of lefties, albeit guys like Preston Tucker, Mason Williams, Tucker Barnhart. They're not the most exciting to play, but they are left-handed. This is a very good ballpark. They still have Votto, Scooter Gennett, Eugenio Suarez, who's cooled down a bit, and their prices are really low. But I think this game is kind of interesting for bats on both ends. David Hess making a start for the Baltimore Orioles against Carlos Carrasco and the Cleveland Indians. The Indians, obviously huge favorites. The total in this game looks like it's about 9. I would think that's mostly, obviously you can see that even with a 9-game total, the Baltimore Orioles are only projected for 3 runs. So this is a spot that I think the Indians are projected to do really well. They're at home where they play great. We've got 75 degrees, 82% humidity. Looks like some potential light rain, but all in all, this seems like a great spot for Cleveland at home where they play well. The prices are getting out of control. Looks like Edwin Encarnacion is still out, but the prices for Lindor, Brantley, and Ramirez, the 3 guys you mainly want to play, are just out of control. If you can make it work, though, this is a phenomenal spot against Baltimore. David Hess is awful, especially against lefties, but in general, he is just awful. The Indians are going to throw a lot of lefties at him. Jason Kipnis, Melky Cabrera, Yonder Alonso, they're all reasonably priced. Even on the bottom here, Greg Allen. All these guys are reasonably priced. So I still think the Indians are in play. It's just the guys that you really want to play are kind of expensive. I think Jose Ramirez is coming off a horrible game. It's so rare that he does that. It's hard to imagine him not hitting a home run or not putting up a good score in too many games in a row. Or more than once even. So I think the Indians are definitely in play. As far as Carrasco, I prefer to play him on the road, and I think if I'm going to go up that high, I might as well go up to Scherzer. On top of that, you saw with like Zach Wheeler the other day, the Baltimore Orioles have been scrappier lately, and they've got like one of the best higher batting averages in the league since the All-Star break. So I don't really want to pick on Carrasco per se. There's just too many good. If this was a smaller slate, maybe I'd consider it as leverage. But because the slate's so big, I just don't think I have to go there. I think I'm going to stay away from Carrasco. I do think I like the Indians, and I'm not going to take too many of these Baltimore Orioles. Just because it is such a big slate, I'm sure we can find a better path with less resistance, so to speak. Kyle Freeland, the lefty from the Colorado Rockies, visiting Sean Newcomb of the Atlanta Braves. The Braves have been pretty hot. I know that John Gray went out there and shut them down. But Kyle Freeland is not John Gray. John Gray is an elite pitcher. He's got elite numbers. When he's outside of course, he's deadly. I think we can look at some of the Braves. I think Acuna and Albies are definitely in play. I don't even mind Freddie Freeman against the lefty. Especially if you're doing the stack, make sure you include Freeman, because if the stack works, Freeland won't be in there that long. And then you have the Rockies, who have one of the worst bullpens in the game, coming in. So I think there's some value here with these Braves. I think Adam Duvall at 3.2 is just too cheap. I know he's been bad, especially since going to the Braves, but that's just a really good price. Johan Camargo has been batting 5th. His price went down. He's actually been pretty hot. I think the Braves are very viable. Good ballpark, good temperatures. Looks like the Braves are minus 128. Total's gonna be around 8.5. I would definitely think that the Braves are in a decent spot. They've just been hot. Again, I know they had a rough game against John Gray tonight, but all in all, they're still, that guy's very good. Like I said, in my opinion, he's an elite pitcher. You have elite numbers over that long of a sample. To me, you're an elite pitcher. As far as Sean Newcomb, not really interested. 7-1 is cheap, and I think he'll get a lot of traction. But when you're looking at these guys against lefties, it is definitely scary. Like Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado, Ian Desmond. And the thing is, Newcomb relies so much on his four-seam fastball. He throws a lot of fastballs. I think this could be a spot where the Rockies wake up a little bit. We know Arenado is a beast against lefties. Their prices are a little high, Arenado and Story, but that's kind of because they've been smashing lefties so hard. Even Ian Desmond, I know he's been cold, but he's been significantly better against lefties this year. So, I think the Rockies are interesting. This is not a game where I want bats. Again, at 7-1, I think Newcomb will get some traction. People do like to play those cheaper, mid-tier to cheaper pitchers that seem underpriced, but the DK algorithm knows all. And if he's this cheap, there might be a reason. So I like both bats, and I think the Rockies could be pretty sneaky. I don't ever have success with them away from Coors, but one thing I've noticed is when a pitcher throws a lot of fastballs and he goes up against a team that hits that velocity fastball well, it typically doesn't go all that well for the pitcher. I know Newcomb's had a couple decent games, like against the Dodgers, who were terrible against lefties. This is a different situation. This team is actually pretty good against lefties, so I do think that the Rockies are in play. Odorizmer Despaigne of the Los Angeles Angels visiting Mike Minor of the Texas Rangers. No total or line yet. Looks like I'm sure that the Angels were probably late to announce their starter. 95 degrees, 42% humidity. This game has just crushed Coors in terms of runs. Even tonight, I know it slowed down a little bit, but still a bunch of runs. It just seems like it's so easy. Obviously, the Angels will go a little lower owned. People know that they're not very good against lefties. Mike Minor is not a great pitcher, but he's serviceable. I don't think I want to pitch him at 6-1. The Angels still don't strike out enough, and there's too much risk coming to this ballpark. If the Angels do happen to make some contact, which they should make contact, if the contact happens to be halfway decent, there's a chance that ball could carry out. One thing I will say about the Angels is they have been hitting the ball harder against lefties lately, like Albert Pujols, even Upton. And this Taylor Ward guy, he's actually decent against lefties. So we'll have to also see. They have a young catcher. He's not in this projected lineup, but he's actually been decent against lefties too. Maybe you get the Angels at slightly less ownership. Their prices are great. Their prices all came down because of how bad they are against lefties. All in all, kind of hard to come here if you're doing like one or two main teams. Probably more of like an MME if you have multiple teams. Get some exposure to the Angels because they have been really bad overall against lefties for whatever reason. As far as the Rangers, they're a team that play well at home. Their prices are all extremely high for good reason. Nomar Mazara is back. He had a home run. Jerkson Profar has been pretty hot. Looks like Beltre may miss again. And then Joey Gallo, man, having himself a phenomenal stretch right now. So the Rangers are definitely in play. They should be relatively chalky. A lot of people say that the Angels bullpen is bad. They're not great, but they're not like the worst. And matter of fact, I think they're in the top. They're in the top half. I know that in ERA. So maybe not as high of an upside spot. But again, like it does seem on most nights you can just stack up this game and the runs just go crazy. So that's definitely something that we've seen. It looks like Derrick Rodriguez was placed on the DL and Casey Kelly will start for Derrick Rodriguez. So we're going to have to pay more attention to that tomorrow. WiseTake.com. We'll check it out in the strategy session. On this particular show, we're going to keep things rolling because we got another show coming up after this. But keep that in mind. We did just find out that Derrick Rodriguez from the Giants is not going to be playing. It's Casey Kelly at 4K who will be pitching instead. I'll see what I can find on Casey Kelly real quick. So he was in AAA this year. He did not do very good. This could be a good spot for the Rays. He was not doing for the Reds. Casey Kelly was not doing very good in in the minors. In AAA, in 23 starts, he had a 1.25 home run per 9, an xFIP of 4.72. His ground ball rate really wasn't that great. Not a lot of K upside. Yeah, the Reds matchup just got a little juicier. Anyway, back to the Rangers. I prefer the Rangers for sure, but everybody will. The Rangers should be very chalky tomorrow. There's no question about it, but for good reason, right? It's getting hot again. They're good at home. A lot of awesome lefties going up against a mediocre righty. Rangers definitely going to be in play, but they're going to be chalky. Jake Junis visiting James Shields. Royals, White Sox. Total here looks like it's around 9.5, we'll say. No, it's about 9. The White Sox minus 118 at home. The White Sox were able to beat up Jordan Zimmerman. No surprise, they always seem to beat up Jordan Zimmerman. Jake Junis coming off a really strong game. His price is up to 7.4. I think he's another one that'll get some traction as far as ownership goes. I actually think I prefer James Shields in this, and I could be making a huge mistake by that. But 6.3 for James Shields against a bad Royals team is kind of enticing. Shields is a guy that just does a very good job of trolling, and he's capable of decent games. So at 6.3, I don't think it's a terrible idea, considering how bad the Royals are. I will say this, the Royals have been a little more scrappy lately, so it's a little scary, and I prefer lefties against them because then you take out some of these power guys like Lucas Duda. And Sal Perez has also been hot, but James Shields at 6.3 is somewhat interesting. Junis is a guy that I think will get a lot of attention, even at 7.4. If he becomes chalk, he's not a guy you ever want as chalk. You really only want Junis when nobody else is going to play him. He was 6K in his last matchup. I think it was against the Cardinals where he did well. He's got K upside, and the White Sox strike out a lot, but he also gives up hard contact and fly balls, which in this ballpark could be a really bad thing. This is a small ballpark. It's warm. It's humid. The White Sox offense is very cheap, and they'll probably go virtually unowned like they always do. So you could make a case for Junis. At 7.4, I don't like buying high on players. Like I'm very much from the buy low, sell high mantra. And I think we might be buying a little high on Junis against the White Sox. Again, if you like Junis, I totally get it. I get the matchup. He's a big slider guy. Does have some swing and miss stuff. And the White Sox swing and miss a lot. But they also have a lot of power. And they looked pretty good against Zimmerman the other day. This is not Zimmerman, different pitcher. But again, what scares me with Junis is he does give up a lot of fly balls and a lot of hard contact. And this is a smaller park. Next up, Matt Boyd, the lefty from the Detroit Tigers, visiting Kyle Gibson of the Minnesota Twins. So the Twins just beat the shit out of Liriano today. They put up a shit ton of runs. Logan Forsythe finally did something. Miguel Sano hit a home run off a lefty. Jorge Polanco hit a home run off a lefty. Even Adrianza, I think, just hit a home run, although that was off the bullpen. The Twins are viable. 88 degrees, going to be kind of warm out there in Minnesota. Matt Boyd is obviously better than Liriano. And the Twins have still sucked against lefties overall. So I'm not so quick to go back to the Twins. I actually think Matt Boyd at 7.2 is somewhat interesting. I'll say this, as bad as the Twins have been against lefties, they do have a couple guys who are supposed to change that dynamic. Guys like Logan Forsythe and Tyler Austin. Even Miguel Sano, he spent a lot of time in the minors this year, but he's a guy that usually did hit lefties well. So him not being there this season has been one of the reasons that the Twins have not been good against lefties. So I'm not dying to take too many lefties against them. On top of that, they're not really a high strikeout team. I know that when they traded away Escobar and Dozier and some of these guys, everybody just assumed that means the Twins were going to suck and we can all take pitchers against them. But they're not actually all that terrible in terms of strikeouts. Now, they're not necessarily a good team, per se, obviously, but they're not the worst. So Matt Boyd is a guy that typically has been getting by this season. If you look at his numbers, you'll just be kind of confused. Like, just wondering, like, how the hell is he doing this? But he gets it done, and 7.2 is a decent price. So I'd probably be more inclined to lean towards Matt Boyd rather than chase the success of the Twins. I said on the Y stream, I think the Twins were my second favorite stack. I think today in the Y stream, my favorite stacks were the Blue Jays, the Twins, and the Nationals. And the Twins went out there and did their thing. So I'm not really sure, but initially it kind of seems fishy to chase that. But we'll have to see. I mean, I do think that they're going to be better against lefties going forward. Kyle Gibson at 8.5 should be very popular against the Tigers. The Tigers have been swinging a good bat. I don't hate the idea. I think Gibson's decent, maybe more suited for a cash game. Because the Tigers are just one of those teams. Another team that just as bad as they look, their roster, they just don't strike out a ton. And you have to be a really nasty pitcher to get them to strike out. So Gibson, I think, is okay at 8.5. I do think in tournaments he'll get some ownership for the people that want to play those expensive stacks, like the Indians, for instance, or the Rangers. So Gibson's I'm probably going to look for a pivot, but Gibson's obviously a decent option, especially if you think the Twins are going to do well. I do think that there's merit to doing the Twin stack with Gibson. We like to do stacks with the pitchers for the maximum correlation, so I think that's a good way to get a little different, because I still don't think the Twins are going to be popular. There's just too many games, so I think Gibson and the Twins would be the best way to go. Although again, I'm not too crazy about Gibson on my first look, because the Tigers have been hitting the ball a little better. And they're just a team that doesn't strike out a ton. Freddy Peralta of the Milwaukee Brewers visiting Jack Flaherty of the St. Louis Cardinals. This is an interesting matchup for show. 76 degrees, 81% humidity. Totals about 8.5. St. Louis minus 130. So obviously our boys Cash and DFS and Paulie D have been all over the Freddy Peralta is a fraud train. Dude throws like a shit ton of fastballs, and then he throws a curve. However, he has had success against in situations where teams don't know him very well. Give me 1 sec. I just want to make sure that the Cardinals haven't seen him, because that's kind of been the issue. I think he's got a funky delivery. I think Cam, who's a Brewers fan, was telling us that he likes the way he hides his fastball, or the way he hides his pitches, or his arm angles, or some shit like that. I just want to know if he's seen the Cardinals yet. I don't think he has. No, he has not seen the Cardinals yet. So he could be interesting here against St. Louis. They don't strike out a ton. They're better against righties. They definitely gave Rourke a harder time. Rourke was kind of cruising to that one inning, but they weren't striking out. But this guy does throw a lot of curveballs. We got to see how the Cardinals hit the curveball. And again, like the first time Peralta sees guys, he does have good strikeout upside. It seems when people get a little bit more comfortable with him, that's when the upside kind of dips. So I don't want to rule him out just yet. As far as Flaherty, I like the Brewers on the road is definitely a better spot than the Brewers at home, but 9.8 is kind of expensive. Flaherty his strikeout upside does dip when there's lefties in the lineup, and they should have a good amount of lefties here for him. And even the righties they have, like Aguilar and Kane, are kind of scary. Kane because he doesn't strike out, Aguilar because he's a beast. So I think that the Brewers could be in play against Flaherty. At the very least, I don't think I can play Flaherty at 9.8. I know he's coming off a good game. That was against the Royals. He's had good games against the Brewers in the past. That was back when they struck out a lot. With this new team, with the addition of Moustakas and Yelich and some of these guys, they really don't strike out that much anymore. So I'm not dying to pay 9.8 for Flaherty against the Brewers. Like I would prefer to attack the Cardinals at this point than the Brewers. That's just the way it's been. Beginning of the season, it was the complete opposite. But now with this new team the Brewers have, they are definitely a lot more scary. Charlie Morton of the Houston Astros visiting Edwin Jackson of the Oakland Athletics. There you go, D Millie. I just saw what you put in the YouTube chat, bro. You got a big entry tomorrow. Let's get it, man. I'm with you. We'll go, D Millie. We're gonna have a stretch test, all that shit. We'll be good. Jim, we're doing the football podcast right after this. Hopefully, we're gonna start it in about 20 minutes or so. So right after we finish up with this, we're gonna move on to the football podcast, baby. I'm excited with you, bro. I'm excited with you. Charlie Morton of the Houston Astros visiting Edwin Jackson of the Oakland Athletics. Charlie Morton's price came down. That's a really good price for him, $10K for the upside. I know he had a bad game against the Mariners. That's probably why. And he hasn't shown a ton of ceiling ever since that game against the Blue Jays. It's kind of been the case with all the Houston pitchers, but we did see Cole and Verlander kind of wake back up against the Rockies. Problem here, it's a great ballpark. The problem here is that the A's have been pretty hot. I know that Lee kind of shut them down, but in general, they've just been winning. Morton doesn't have the greatest history against Oakland. Looks like last year in April, he had a monster game against them, but his last two starts, going back to September of last year and July 12th of this year, he really didn't do well. There's strikeout upside with the A's, but they've seemed to just found this click where they're just hitting really well. I still think that there's value for Morton at 10-1, and the Astros are coming off a game where they finally woke up. They got Correa back. It looks like Springer might be back. The only guy they're missing is Altuve. Then maybe they get things rolling. 7-8 for Edwin Jackson seems kind of ridiculous. I know he's been pitching well, but 7-8 for Evan Jackson against the Astros, a team that really doesn't strike out. They're I think they're the lowest in strikeouts. That's a no. But Morton at 10-1 is kind of interesting to me. Like, again, I love the A's. I always play the A's. I play them way more than I think your average DFS player who's not an A's fan does. But Morton at 10-1, that's a lot of upside for 10-1. So if I was going to play a cheaper guy, not that he's cheap, but for him, there's a lot of value there. Problem, of course, as we said, is Oakland has been hot. But 10-1 for Morton is definitely appealing. Next up, Robbie Ray of the Arizona Diamondbacks visiting Joey Lucchesi of the San Diego Padres. Robbie Ray is 7-6. Holy hell. Going up against one of the nation's favorite teams to play against lefties. I mean that half sarcastically. The San Diego Padres. 77 degrees, 73% humidity. So it is fairly warm and fairly humid for San Diego. You could expect this ball to carry it a little bit better. So the man, this is tough. Lucchesi, I was all over Lucchesi against the Phillies. That was because the Phillies suck against lefties. I don't think Lucchesi is that great of a pitcher. I mean, he's still young. He's got plenty of time to grow, and I don't want to judge him too early, but he's another one that I think had more success beginning of the season because of his deceptive delivery. When you have a team that's bad against lefties, I think he'll do well. And the D-backs are kind of in the middle. Goldschmidt this year has been doing better against lefties. I think Pollock has. Souza, we know, is better against righties, always has been. But then you got like Nick Ahmed and Ketel Marte. If those guys are in there, which they should be, those guys are definitely better against lefties. I don't think I really have too much interest in Lucchesi at 7-7. Again, another situation where his price increase just kind of went a little too high. At the same time, I don't love the D-backs against him. I'm just concerned with strikeouts for Lucchesi. As far as Robbie Ray, that's a ton of upside. He should be pretty popular, and if he ends up being the chalk, I think that there's merit to just walking away from this. But 7-6 for Robbie Ray against the Padres, like, you have to consider that. Now, I will say this, some of these guys, Margot, Will Myers, Renfroe, Villanueva, Hedges, they're all better against lefties. Franmil Reyes has hit most of his home runs off righties, but he also, he's got pretty good numbers against lefties as well. So the Padres could be a sneaky stack to leverage. This seems like a very good hedge situation, right? Like, you take Robbie Ray in your main team, if that's what you want to do, because I'm sure most people would prefer to play Robbie Ray at 7-6. He's been bad, don't get me wrong. He's not looked great. But the Ks are still there. The swinging strike rate is still there. His strikeout upside is still there. And the Padres are still the Padres. And the Padres, even though the Padres have been playing well, they've been doing better against righties lately, which is kind of strange because they've always been better against lefties. So I do think Robbie Ray at 7-6 is in consideration. I think he's going to be very popular. That concerns me. But again, I think if you build a hedge team and you throw in some of these Padres you're worried about, like Hunter Renfroe, Margot, Villanueva, Hedges, Franmil Reyes, Will Myers, I think, you could be in a decent situation. So I lean Robbie Ray over Lucchesi, although I will say that I think Lucchesi's ownership will be crazy low. If you're like cashing DFS on a fuck the chalk train, then you're probably not going to want to play Ray. But we'll have to gauge his ownership. I would think he's going to be very popular, but he has been bad as chalk, so we're going to have to gauge it and see if his recent performances has dropped his ownership at all. But I would imagine that like him and Gibson will be like a pretty popular pairing so that people can load up on bats. Walker Buehler against the Mariners. Buehler at 9-2 is kind of expensive. He's good, don't get me wrong. He's a good pitcher, but the Dodgers may baby him. I will say this, the Dodgers bullpen has been a little effed up, so to speak, ever since they lost their closer. Like, their bullpen's actually been terrible lately. They got one of the best bullpens in the game, but lately it's been bad. So I'm curious. I got to know what Walker Buehler's leash is like, because the traditional Dodger way is to baby their pitchers, but they haven't been doing that lately because they've needed them to go deeper because their bullpen is kind of in shambles. As far as taking the Mariners against him, I just don't think I have to. Not a good ballpark for hitting. There's so many other good spots. And Wade LeBlanc, oh man, the Dodgers continue to suck against lefties. Just don't understand it, no matter who they bring over here. Justin Turner at 4-4 is viable. Matt Kemp may be coming out of this funk. He's fine. Yasiel Puig is out, so we'll see who plays in place of him. He's suspended for a couple games for the fight he started or whatever. But the Dodgers right now, on a 14-game slate, I just don't see how I come here and stack the Dodgers. We've talked about too many good spots for me to come here and want to stack the Dodgers. And as far as LeBlanc, I'm just not a big LeBlanc guy. I've played him in the past, and I've honestly felt like I've gotten really lucky with that. And I really don't want to push my luck too much. So, oh my gosh, the Twins scored 14 runs. Holy shit. Wow. Well, they were in my top threes today, so that's pretty cool. And the Angels bullpen, look at that, blowing a lead. The Chalky Rangers running a wild. How about that? Just checked on my phone for the first time, and it's like, damn. Anyway, moving right along. Let's do some top threes here. So, I gotta scroll up and take a look. This is tough. So, my number one is gonna be Max Scherzer. Going up against the Marlins. I know he's expensive, but with all the good bat spots, I think his ownership may be a bit low. So I do like that. Number two would probably have to be... I mean, it's got to be fucking Robbie Ray against the Padres. Like, I'm very worried that that's going to be Chalk City, but I mean, I got to think that 7-6 against the Padres just feels cheap. And then I guess, I'm not leaving you guys with much, so this is what I'll do. My favorite expensive guy, I'll break it up in tiers. My favorite expensive guy is Max Scherzer. My favorite mid-tier guy will go with Robbie Ray. And then my favorite cheap arm is probably going to be James Shields. We don't have that 4K guy that's going to make things easy. So, well, you know, like David Hess, I doubt anybody's going there. So maybe some people will think about Casey Kelly, which it looks like a mistake to me. But I think that's going to keep Scherzer's ownership low because there's not really that super cheap SP2 to pair him with. So the value bats are going to be crucial to me tomorrow. If I try to play Scherzer, I'm going to need some value bats, which may mean I leverage with the Padres. Oh, God. Tricky slate, 14 games. Normally there's a ton of options and a ton of ways to go. But for this particular one, if you're trying to pay up for pitcher, there's not a ton of ways to go. As far as my top three stacks, I think I'll go with, give me the Indians number one, give me the Red Sox number two. And maybe for a little bit more of a contrarian stack, like a lower owned contrarian stack, maybe we'll go with the Rockies against Sean Newcomb. We'll settle there. Tough one. Come rock with us tomorrow. I'm gonna do the strategy session tomorrow. It'll be like I share my screen, but I actually go through stats and we do the research together. So come check it out. It's $2.50 for an MLB Day Pass if you don't have access to us and you just want to try us out for a day. If you're ready to sign up monthly, if you try this and you want more, you want the good shit. We do cover a bunch of sports. Right now, golf, NASCAR, NFL is coming up. We do preseason coverage. And then, of course, NBA is right around the corner. So we do have an all-sports package you can get for the month. We have all-sports weeklies you can get too. But the all-sports package, no matter where you're going, is the way to go. The football package is really cheap. If you only play football, it's a really cheap package. It's like I think it's like under $100 or something like that. So for the full season NFL, but guys, what you want to be a full member of the community. Like, if you're cool with just the content, then sure, get the week pass, get the day pass. If you really want to be a full function, and again, it's not just about content. We are a community. We help each other out. We learn from each other. Some of our members have had great success. Like, we got guys that never played baseball, and they came in here and they won a shit ton of money this year just from learning and you know, grinding it out with us. So it's a great community. Get in now. We got football coming up next. Going to do the preseason show, so stick around on the YouTube channel. As for myself, I'll be hosting that show. It was a pleasure doing this with you guys. Made it pretty quick. Thursday nights solo shows for Friday slates might be the common thing for the remainder of the MLB season while we wind it down, get some of our guys some time off to do some football coverage and all that good shit. But again, guys, we go thorough here. No days off for the nation. So make sure you check us out tomorrow. We'll do a strategy session. We'll have the Y stream an hour and a half before lock. We'll have the cheat sheets, the expert polls, the cash articles, GPP articles, all that shit. We don't stop. Anyway, guys, appreciate you listening. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like and a share to support the West Lake Nation. If you're watching on Twitch or Twitter, give us a follow, give us a retweet. And of course, if you are listening to us on Podbean or iTunes. Give us some 5-star reviews. Help bump us up those charts. We want to keep doing these shows for free for you guys, but we need you guys to help us out a little bit, show us a little bit of love. So if you're not going to sign up at whitestake.com, at least you can do is like the shows, retweet us, show us some support, and spread the word. We appreciate it, guys. All right, for myself, the entire White Stake Nation, as always, good luck.